Hello and welcome. This is episode number 49 of the VCD Roundtable. Today's primary topic is going to be the upcoming end of support. While Sasha and I are at the CloudFest in Rust and actually meet up here with local providers, Matthias is in lovely Vienna in his office. Good day, everybody.
Correct. Hello, welcome from Vienna, new office. It just looks shiny. We don't have blue skies. It's just a bit of kind of a sun, but I think I made it just on time.
Yes. Welcome also from my side.
Good. Before we head into today's session, a quick update for those who couldn't attend. We ran the first CSP webinar last week for all those CSPs who are in our service provider community. Those are ones who actually attended trainings, are using white label with us, or have any other relationship. But if you want to join the Common CSP community and always stay up to date on the newest around knowledge base, service packs, and end of life, end of service as well as attending our monthly webinars, then feel free to ping any one of us, and then we can see that we can validate you and add you to the community from that perspective. That being said, upcoming end of support. So while we will not cover each individual product as we go through it, there are a few end of support scenarios every service provider should be aware of by the end of this year. I mean, NSX-V is long end of support. However, the other changes which are Matthias, it's not that funny. We still are migrating service providers of NSX-V.
If I agree, but I hope I remember correctly. It's like, I don't know, like 3.5 years ago or 4.5 years ago. It's either or, I don't know. You said you will see. I guarantee, right? So NSX-V's end of life, end of support, they will migrate within months and weeks. And now, like 3 or 4 years later, you're still like, there is a ton of NSX-V out there. So it's still funny, guys. It's unbelievable.
Yes, but the more important storyline, as most service providers are heavily relying on vSphere 7 to actually do the migration, because it's basically the only pathway you have, even though you don't have support for the migration process in general. However, if we run the support at least within our boundaries, we are giving you some level of support for it. But the challenge is that we now have the next doomsday ahead of us, which is vSphere 7 running end of support. Originally, it was planned for April. They now moved it to October. But I have strong doubts that they have any idea of actually changing that again. So from that perspective, that is actually clearly going to be a corner point for most service providers, as from that perspective, you need to know that you need to actually get off both now. So vSphere and NSX-V.
And I think you implicitly mentioned a very important topic, at least from my point of view, regarding to updates and upgrades. If you run out of support, firstly, what we saw so far, and guys, please correct me if I'm wrong, but Broadcom is pretty strict. If a product is end of life, end of support, you cannot download it anymore. What I saw so far, please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, that's it. Yes.
Oh, cool, Sasha. Thank you so much for confirmation. And now we are into a very interesting situation, or a few pitfalls ahead of us, because if you sooner or later, and in NSX-V case it's more later, plan to upgrade to or migrate to new infrastructure. Now, to upgrade, you need to create an upgrade plan, and during the upgrade plan, it's important to keep the product interoperability in mind, because not every product version is compatible with a current version of another product. As Yves mentioned, for example, NSX-V and vSphere 8. So you cannot upgrade to vSphere 8 if you still have NSX-V in place, because it's not just not supported, it's not working. So it's even worse. And if you are then in the situation like, oh cool, I've now done the migration or whatever, now I can upgrade, blah blah blah, and then you haven't downloaded the binaries up front, you are in a rabbit hole, you're in a black hole, not able to move out of the situation anymore because there is no valid upgrade path anymore. And even worse, it's not just a non-valid upgrade path, it's an upgrade path which does not exist anymore. So you are captured.
That's an important topic, and also additional to that. So if you miss one host, make sure, and you are still on vSphere 7, you don't have the images. And also you don't have the documentation, because all the old documentation will be no longer available for you after the end of support. So we saw it now with the V2T migration tool. All documentations are gone now.
It would be interesting if Broadcom currently, because of our podcast, has an increase of downloads on vSphere 7.
I think so. And also, it's the same with all of the normal vSphere updates you currently get. So with the last incident, so all the informations you need to download now to update your systems later on if you can't make it in time to upgrade to vSphere 8 because of NSX-V, because of other combinations you are currently running. Yeah. So that's an important topic you need to check. And the upgrade path, what Matthias mentioned, I think that's really important to take a look early enough. So start with your upgrade planning. Take a look if you have currently running products that running end of support, end of life. Take a look, what are the steps, what are the upgrade paths, how is the compatibility between different products you are currently running, and also take a look if you have self-written PowerShell scripts, APIs, and so on. Make sure that you have a demo environment that you can test all of your scripts with vSphere 8, that you have a smooth upgrade path to the new products.
And what you shouldn't forget is, like, I mean, if we look at vSphere 7, we just had 2 weeks ago a security advisory on one of these products. No one even knows if that security advisory basically applies to vSphere 6.x as well, because there is just no notice from Broadcom about that anymore, because it's not evaluated anymore. And so thinking about all of this, we are getting into a stage, and I wouldn't say that the products became less secure with the Broadcom acquisition, because in reality, when you trace back in these CVSs very often how old the versions are to which you can go back with these security incidents, that was before the acquisition in most cases. So from that perspective, it means we are sitting on an environment which is more and more targeted. And so people are identifying more and more issues. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the products are less or more secure. But the challenge is, once you hit end of support, then at this stage, from what we have seen with vSphere 6.x in the past couple of months or in the last 12 months, is Broadcom is going to shut down the availability of support. Even if customers can buy extended support, they made very, very sure that only those customers with valid extended support have the ability to A, download the patches, and then B, to install them. So even if you find someone who could potentially get you access to it, doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work with your license keys and everything else. So better be safe than sorry if you are looking to actually get from vSphere 7 to 8, or maybe directly make the jump from vSphere 7 to VCF. start early, engage, for example, with us so that we help you in the design phase, in the upgrade planning phase. As we said several times on these podcasts, this does not necessarily always have to be a highly complex project. In many cases, this can be done very, very easily, but make sure that you start. We have March, mid of March, beginning of October is already end of support. That's not a long time period, especially if we then figure out that you have changes on the HCL, considering that still servers might take a few days, weeks until you get them. They need to be racked on stacks. So if this is actually pushing up a requirement for new hardware, that actually shortens the time frame you have to do the upgrade dramatically. On the other side, even if you are still running, for example, an older VCD version, which was running fine with vSphere 7, check that first, because you might need to upgrade your VCD and some other tools as well, which then actually bring other challenges for you because maybe your backup solution doesn't work on the newer versions anymore, or. So there is a huge complexity in that, especially in the CSP space. We have done so many upgrades in the last couple of years, and some of them were very challenging to identify the right path, the right timing, the right steps, and what are potential areas where you should actually create a fallback scenario. So if ABC doesn't work, we fall back to that. That needs to be tested, validated, and very well planned. So as always, it's like if you feel that you need help with it, feel free to ping us. If not, it's like it's all documented from VMware. It just requires a lot of time until you figure out all of these individual bits and pieces on how to get from A to B. So, beside vSphere, what else was on the list, Sasha?
Yeah, next an interesting part is also NSX-T, though NSX-T 3.1 runs out of support. We are still saw a few installations with 3.1, but yes, we also see installations with NSX-V. So yeah, but make sure, I think it's an easy upgrade from 3.1 to 3.2. But take a look at the API calls.
Yeah, and so when you look at that, hmm, hmm. So when you look at the API calls and things like that, it is becoming a more and more important part. Broadcom or VMware had made several changes in the last releases, whether it's on the VCD side. Matthias spoke in the last session about some of the changes in the API. There are changes on the NSX side in the API. vSphere has changes. And not always out of the box can you just take your existing PowerShell or whatever else scripts and just actually apply them to the newest platform. So be sure that you actually validate whatever you have as an automation as a service provider so that you are sure that that is actually fully covered from that perspective. Good.
And especially PowerShell is very different because PowerShell has an abstraction layer in. So the commandlets, they might look the exact same, but in the backend, they use a different API version or they have a different API implementation. So I would say release notes reader are in front of others. So be very careful with that, especially from 7 to 8. I don't know out of my head how many API changes there are, but expect at least some.
Yeah, and also what Yves mentioned before. So if you are now starting and say, hey, we are on vSphere 7, maybe need to buy new hardware because running out of the hardware compatibility list. So also think about maybe directly going to VCF, because if you have to redeploy, if you have to do a lot on your hardware, if you have to, move your workloads. So it's maybe a good idea to directly think about to start on the VCF stuff.
But don't wait for 9 because there is no official release date. We don't know a release date. we don't know the features which might be available with the first release. And you have no clue if your current hardware is compatible with VCF9. So that time frame narrows down everything, and you have no clue how VCF9 works. So I would not bet on this one. So that's my Matthias opinion.
Plus, what you need to keep in mind with VCF9 is, yes, there was a statement from Broadcom coming that if you're utilizing VCD, it will be supported with VCF9. The way on how it will be supported and when it will be supported is a completely different beast. Potentially, if you need to make a hardware decision, what I would currently maybe do is actually start your upgrade and whatsoever plan in the next couple of days, weeks, as that will take some time, and then plan the hardware so that once but don't order it finally, and then once we have whatever date VCF9 comes out, which shouldn't be too far out, as soon as you have that, then validate that against your hardware order if that is going to be supported, and then finally place it. Because you can still request quotes now, you can actually size the hardware, you can size the network, you can prepare all of these different things. I'm not 100% sure if I were to currently kick out the order of the hardware, or if I would wait until VCF 9.0 release. And we spoke several times about what potential dates there are for that. And from that perspective, I would wait potentially on that if you can. If you can't, and if you are going with, let's say, a safe bet, like the most current, let's say, HPE server models or Lenovo models, I think you are on the safe side. If you are more on the experimental side, where you actually have more build-to-order hardware, I would be a bit more careful because the combinations might actually be different. What you also should keep in mind as you are looking into vSAN, that you use the newer storage architecture so that you are no longer building on the old model. And all of these things should actually be taken into consideration. Consider that you build a decent network for all of these newer demands, because if you are going to utilize vSAN with NVMe only, then you should have enough pipeline on the network side. Otherwise, you're actually blocking yourself over there. So there are a bunch of different things you should consider. But keep all of them in mind as you're moving towards the newest release. A few other things when we go through the release list are a few older Aria versions are going to be end of support as well. However, I would not think that many of you are still using them, because the Aria operations version is pretty outdated, which is going to go end of support or has been going end of support this month. Same for Aria automation and a few others. On the other side, we just recently had a discussion with a customer around Aria automation, if someone should actually start with the current Aria automation version or not. Matthias had his very, very open opinion on, hey, it's a new major release. And from that point of view, I can only agree with him, because when we look at all the last major releases, whether it was 5 to 6, 6 to 7, 7 to 8, in all of these scenarios, it was, and that was actually a very positive way of describing it, a painful process to get there. And we don't know how the step to 9 is going to be, if there finally is something where there is just, hey, I press a button and then I get upgraded. But again, considering 5, 6, 7, 8, the last 4 release changes were different.
And interesting. Yeah, so honestly, it's just a guessing game. I wish that I'm totally wrong with that. That would be awesome. But honestly, I don't know. That's what Eve said. We just don't know. We just advise, be careful. If you don't have a desperate need to start with Aria automation straight ahead, you should wait until VCF 9 is released and look into the new VCFA. think that's the proper acronym for VCF automation. It's VCFA, and start with this one. And then we hope that there won't be a major change with VCF10, just to come up with a new number, but we will see.
But yeah, so those were on the list. There were a few other products on the list which we don't really care. I mean, we know some listeners might be out of the telco.
I think SRM is on the list. SRM 8.6.
Yeah, but we are not using SRM in combination with Cloud Directory, except for the management plane. So
okay.
that's why I did not necessarily put it on the list. There are a few Tanzu things. What I'm more concerned around is more the bits and pieces. Where did I have it? So usage meter, you should have solved that already. Yeah, what I was referring to was the telco cloud. As quite a few of the listeners here in the VCD space are also using the telco or NFV features and stuff like that. So better be sure to check those areas as well, what the future is going to look like, what the pathway is going to look like, and what's end of life, end of support on those areas. So that you are not getting caught by surprise on these areas, because it seems like that Broadcom is going to actually try to squeeze that to a shorter time frame, which also reminds me of the very important statement for service providers in general, because the contract tells you that you can only be on the current or the last major release. So in reality, from a VCSP contract perspective, with release of VCF9, you can only, to be fully license compliant, again, it's always a question if someone audits it or not, you need to be on version 8 or 9. So even though the end of support is October, it might actually be faster, because you might no longer be licensed to use these versions anymore. And the question is, in the future, is 9.0 and 9.1 two major releases or minor releases? And we will see. But so, as you can see, it's we need to get used to, and in reality, service providers are offering cloud services to their customers. They should be more or less much more up to date. In the past, this was relatively easy to stick around with an older version. I think it should be in every business plan of a service provider to have a far more thorough, on one hand, testing, but also timeline to actually get new releases in place. Okay, do we have anything fun to talk about? Except for these end of support scenarios. I'm looking forward. Yeah.
Fun. I like your new glasses.
Good.
They look
I can
great.
finally see something again. No. I could see something before, but now, except other people in this call, I don't need to actually adjust my mobile phone constantly by the day of time of day or something like that. I'm not saying who I mean. That's for everybody else to attend. But yeah, thank you for that one. It's an interesting experience. I'm still getting used to it. I was getting used to it on my screens in the office over the weekend. That was nice. Working on the notebook is a different scenario. I am still trying to figure out how that works. But we will get to figure that one out. But other than that, fun. So, fun thing is, next week we are going to be in Vegas for the MSP Summit. So, if you are a service provider from the US and you are going to be at the MSP Summit in Vegas, which is not only VMware by Broadcom, but a lot more, feel free to ping Sasha and myself. We also have a few social media posts out where you can directly set up a meeting with us. It's always a fun event. We will be always around there. There are tons of evening events. But again, ping us if you want to meet us there. We are more than happy to do so. We are also heading from there to Palo Alto to actually talk to the Broadcom team. about some of the changes which will be affecting service providers as well. We can't actually yet talk about that pretty much, but I can only suggest for every service provider to closely also watch my social media channel. In the next couple of days, we will post updates, our opinions on that, how we think we managed with that, and what we suggest for others to do with that. So as Broadcom announced several times, it's like the only constant is change. And this is the next one which is going to come. And I know already this is going to come as quite a surprise for some CSPs. But yeah, you only have to wait until Wednesday, March 19th to get to know more, most likely. So not too long. Yeah, that's MSP Summit. The week after the MSP Summit, for those who are more out of the European Germany area, you can meet us live and in person at either the challenge days. So if you haven't signed up for a seat, I think we only have 1 or 2 seats left. So better be fast than sorry, because we are running out of space, which is good because it's going to be an interesting event. Nevertheless, if you're not going to make it for the full 2 days, we will host a Comdivision and Friends dinner on the Wednesday evening in Hamburg. So if you are in the Hamburg area, feel free to actually sign up for that one. Again, links are on social media, or if you just Google for Comdivision and Friends dinner, you will find it as well. And then let us know if you want to join in for that one. And we are more than happy to actually expand that one. There we are a bit more flexible as with the training by itself. Those are the next fun games to be in. And the week after, we are going to be in Dubai and actually plan a Comdivision and Friends dinner in Dubai. So that's also possible. So you can now guess Sasha and my travel schedule for the next few weeks again.
And additional to that, if you are on the Cloud Fest this week, ping us. So we are in Rost on the Cloud Fest. So happy to meet with you. Just write us a message and we can meet.
Good. Anything fun else from you, Matthias?
No, just wishing you guys a great time in Rust for CloudFest. Have fun. I'll stay in the office and do work. Haha.
Yes. Someone has to, if we are going to have all the fun with traveling. Good.
I know, sharing is caring.
Yeah. Thank you all for listening in. We try to become a bit more responsive in getting the things on the podcast channel out as well. And the next episode is going to be in a week and a half, maybe from Vegas or no, from Palo Alto, I think it's going to be, as far as I remember. So that's going to be the next episode. And then we can potentially share about the news which are announced this week. And a few other things which we learned already by then in Palo Alto. And I hope to see you again then soon. And if you have any other topics we should cover, feel free to always drop us a message. And we hope to see you again soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.